This movie, let's say I went through a roller coaster of emotion watching this movie, but in the end, I liked it. I really liked it. What's up, everybody? I'm Rick.
And I'm Anna, and welcome to our review of the 1934 movie Imitation of Life. For those of you who are new here, hello and welcome to our channel, which is dedicated to our bucket list of 101 goals and dreams that we hope to accomplish in our lifetime. And one of those goals for us is to watch every movie that was nominated at the Academy Awards for Best Picture from 1927 to 2028. That is 101 years of Academy Awards Best Picture nominees and their respective winners. And currently we are at the year 1934, which is the 7th Academy Award year, but it is the 8th year that we are doing because we have also done 2019.
Indeed.
To this day, we have watched 54 movies and we have discussed one unavailable movie and one lost movie.
Still lost, still looking for it.
Yeah. As for this review, it is going to be the way they always are. The first part will be spoiler-free, which means that we will give our impressions and top-level appreciations on the movie without spoiling the story. And the second part will be spoiler-filled, which means that we will deep dive into certain scenes, certain elements that piqued our interest, and we will spoil it for you. But don't worry, if you don't want to be spoiled, we will warn you beforehand. At which point you can go to the timestamp in the description box below that will take you directly after the spoiler section to the ranking part of this video, where we rank all the movies nominated for Best Picture in 1934, according to our likings and preferences, obviously.
Yeah, it's our personal list. It's not the end-all be-all of the ranking.
But before all of that, I am gonna give you what is and will always be my favorite part of this movie's review.
Which
information.
Oh,
trivia.
Hit me with that info. What is that movie we watched?
Imitation of Life is a Universal Picture drama film. Came out on November 26, 1934. It is based on the 1933 novel of the same name written by Fanny Hurst. Interesting fact, Fanny Hurst, the author of the novel, huge activist in her time for numerous social causes, including feminism and African American equality.
Head over time.
Very much so, yes. The movie was directed by John M. Stahl, and it stars Claudette Colbert as Beatrice B. Pullman, whom we've also seen before in such movies as Cleopatra and The Smiling Lieutenant.
I remember Cleopatra, but The Smiling Lieutenant, yeah.
Louise Beavers as Delilah Johnson, whom we've also seen before in 42nd Street and in She Done Him Wrong.
I remember her.
Interesting fact, actually, in 1933 and 1934, the actress played in total in almost 40 movies, 39 to be more exact.
Louise Beavers?
Yes. I skimmed through the list and large majority of her roles were
the same type of role.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a hunch. I had a inkling. Yeah, okay.
Movie also stars Rochelle Hudson as Jessie Pullman, whom we've also seen before in She Done Him Wrong, Freddie Washington as Peola Johnson, Warren William as Steve Archer, whom we've also seen before in Cleopatra and Lady for a Day. So a lot of the
recurring actors.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess as we see more and more movies, the actors that we've seen
will come up again. Yeah, that makes sense.
The number rises.
The movie was big success. It was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. First of all, obviously, Outstanding Production or Best Picture, which is why we have watched it and we are reviewing it right now. Best Assistant Director for Scott R. Beale and Best Sound Recording for Theodore Soderbergh. Some more interesting information about the movie. In 2005, it was selected by the United States National Film Registry to be preserved as a movie that is culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And in 2007, it was named by Time as one of the 25 most important films on race ever made.
Oh yeah, 25?
Yes.
I'd like to see that list.
So there are some more information that I would like to give to you, but I want to do that after we start our conversation in the spoiler-free section. So without further ado, let us move on to our spoiler-free section.
No spoilers.
no spoilers. So, Rick, what did you think of this movie?
Me?
Yes, you.
This movie, let's say I went through a roller coaster of emotion watching this movie, but in the end, I liked it. I really liked it. But that's not the opinion I had of it, like, let's say 20 minutes in.
Yeah, I remember as we were watching it.
And so I went through a journey, let's see. And we'll talk about it more in the spoiler section, but to me, it's mainly like Louis Beaver's character at point kind of irked me, and so it was getting me riled up. But as the story progressed and the movie developed, I came to really like it in the end.
So what did you think more specifically about the story?
I think the story is a good story. It's well made. I think, if you look on the surface, there is definitely, you talked about the racial element here, 25 best movies on race. There's definitely a racial aspect on the surface of the story, but also, and that's why in the end I liked it even more. To me, if you analyze some of the scenes, and you don't need to analyze very far, if you just pay attention to the way things are filmed, the way things are positioned, the way characters act, you can feel even more that sub-message of racial inequality. And so to me, the story was very well made, and it's the parallel that they make also between the two families, which we're going to talk about.
I guess this is where I had some more information about the movie, is the way that this issue of racial discrimination is portrayed in the movie. Apparently, the production had a very hard time getting the movie approved by the Code Association.
Oh, yeah, why?
So originally, the movie was much more direct and much more vocal on racial issues. But because the code wouldn't approve a lot of the scenes, the language, and certain other elements of the movie, they had to change it. And they had a very hard time coming up with a way to still deliver their message while taking out all the elements that the Code Association
You know what?
approve.
I like this movie even more now, because what you're saying was one of my main issue. If I had to name some issues that I had, that would have been one of my main issues, that you can see that the movie is about racial inequality, but sometimes I feel like it lacks, punch, it lacks, say it already, just...
So they were not allowed to say
They were not
it.
allowed to hit the problem head on. They had to go in a more roundabout way. That's interesting. And the message still gets delivered through, so I think they did a good job. And the message still gets delivered, so I think they did a good job, contorting these rules.
Yes, indeed. So there are some scenes that are widely acclaimed for being able to deliver the message, or to create this image of differentiation between the white characters and the black characters in the movie without saying
it
a
outright.
word. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we will talk more about specifically one of those scenes.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of them.
Spoiler section, right.
But that's definitely interesting, because I was saying earlier, at first Louise Beaver's character was kind of getting on my nerve a bit. And it was mainly because of this. I felt like she wasn't really addressing what was happening in a direct enough manner. And now that you're saying this, it's eye-opening, really.
I remembered, even while we were watching the movie, that you had comments about this specific aspect. And I found it so interesting when I found this information, that really the movie actually wanted to be even more direct and more upfront, but it had limitations due to the times. So I will quote here: the Production Code Administration censors had difficulty in negotiating how boundaries and racial difference should be cinematically constructed to be seen and believed on the screen. So their problem was actually not as much with the topic, because they couldn't really deny the topic as a whole, but how do we portray it to be believed according to them.
But what does that mean,
So I looked for information. There are some specific topics that we could talk about more in the spoiler field section, where they intervened directly and they took out or modified or demanded the modification of certain parts.
Yeah, because I'm curious actually to see what type of change they requested, but we'll talk about it later.
Right, exactly. So for now, let's move on a little bit into the performances What did you think of the performances specifically?
I think they were good. I especially liked Freddie Washington's performances. You could feel, her pain throughout the movie, her conflict while trying to, in a way, find out who she is for herself, but also she didn't necessarily want to deny her heritage. It's a whole thing. Maybe we can talk about it much more later, but I really liked her. I enjoyed also Claudette Colbert's performance. I thought she was really good.
Yeah, it was a good year for
her,
right? As an actress. So just as a side note, Freddie Washington, who plays Paola, her character was the one that actually had to suffer the most from the
censorship.
Yes,
I'm not surprised.
As a character.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because even in that version of the movie that we watched, she's the character that is the most direct about this stuff.
Yes, exactly. And despite this fact, she received a lot of fan mail after appearing in this movie, thanking her for addressing their issue, specifically from people of mixed origin. So her
performance struck a chord. People recognize themselves in her. Yeah,
exactly.
I can definitely say it. She was one of the highlights.
As for the performance of Louise Beavers, it received a lot of positive reaction from the critic, many of them saying that she should have received a nomination for her performance. And that was an idea that was supported by a lot of the critics and movie industry specialists at the time.
I mean, my issues were more so with her character and less with her performance. But
yes. So more generally, what did you think of the movie as a whole in terms of what it looked like, the sound?
I thought it looked great. I thought it sounded great. I really don't have anything bad to say in that aspect. There's different set. You can see the evolutions of the characters and their way of life and their environment, the clothes they wear. You can tell.
I really like that aspect, that you can definitely see how the characters change.
Yeah, and so now that's very well put together in terms of visual.
So I think that is about it for this section, and we should now move on to our spoiler field section, where we'll probably have a lot to talk about. But if you don't want to get spoiled, you can go to the timestamp in the description box below and jump directly at the ranking section at the end of this video. And if not, let us move on to the spoiler field section.
Spoiler.
Let us start this section by giving a short synopsis of the movie. A struggling widow and her daughter take in a black housekeeper and her fair-skinned daughter. The two women start a successful business but face familial, identity and racial issues along the way. So that is the topic of the movie. And I have to say that for a 1930s movie to address both the issues of racial discrimination and also of feminism and female empowerment, that's very bold.
Yeah, like I said earlier, this movie is ahead of its time. The movie and the book that it's based on ahead of its time.
Yes, very much so. So we said that we would talk about specifically certain scenes that do show the difference between the two women, the two main characters here, without actually pointing out in words this issue. So one of them that is greatly acclaimed to this day is that one scene after the party when Beatrice, Claudette Colbert's character, goes up the stairs while Delia goes down the stairs into the basement where she was living, into the same house, even though the two women were partners in business and they should have been on an equal level.
Yeah. And you can tell even when looking at their different living arrangement, that basement room is barely fancier or bigger than the living room upstairs. The difference is stark. And that's one of the scenes. I don't know if you had other information before I start.
No, go on, please.
That's one of the scenes, but you see a lot of them, talking about the fact that both of them are in business. But the movie makes a point to point out that, you, the white woman, you get X percentage, and you get 20%. The person who actually
had the recipe, who had the product,
recipe,
right?
the actual product. She only gets 20% off of her own pancake recipe that helped start this whole business.
And also talking about that moment at the party, while Claudette's character Beatrice is at the party
Enjoying the
entertaining
party.
the guests.
And then Washington and Beavers are outside
Looking inside, yes. All of these things really make you realize that, yes, the movie is addressing the issue.
Yeah,
but
and so there's a lot of these scenes, and as it went on, as these scenes accumulated, and also with some comments from Washington's character, who was very much outspoken about the fact that she was victim of discrimination, I kind of switched my idea of the movie, because at first we get a scene early in the movie where Louise Beaver's character is talking with her daughter who's crying because she was called black, and then she's speaking in very broad term about like the problem of racial inequality, and she's like, oh, but who's the culprit, who's the victim, who's to say, I don't know what's wrong or what's right. And that kind of hurt me. I was kind of like, no, you know exactly who's persecuting you, you know where the racism come from. Why can't you just tell your daughter? Or why can't you just tell the public? Or why was the movie being so cagey about it? But now that you told me what you were telling me earlier.
Well, so actually, I mentioned earlier that Washington's character, Paola, she was the one character to suffer the most from what the code imposed. Because in the original, I think in the book too, but at least at the very least in the original version of the movie, her character was much more radical about her situation. She was much more direct. So I couldn't find specific things that they changed, except for one thing, which is that at the very end, Paola comes back at the funeral of her mother and regrets having left her.
Yeah.
In the original version of the movie, she never came back, showing like the radical disapproval of what her mother lacked in understanding her situation. So I think that the movie tried to portray this issue of the discrimination of Paola as growing up as a half African American child by putting her like in contrast with the mother who doesn't even understand her own situation.
Who was very accepting of everything that was happening to her. Who was like, oh, I get 20%. I'm very happy. I'm happy to keep living with this woman and keep, taking care of her.
But in taking out that radical aspect of Paola's character, you lose that contrast. So you lose that direct message of, no, you should understand, or we should understand what the issue is.
Yeah, but we had that conversation afterward, because I was telling you, even though it seems like Louise Beaver's character is very much accepting of her situation, which was kind of, making me angry, the fact that Paola's character was so against it made me realize, no, the people who made the movie, they are aware of the situation. Those scenes that we talked about earlier show that they're aware of racial discrimination. The movie is not trying to hide racial discrimination by having Louise Beaver's character always be happy.
Yeah, and accepting her situation.
Exactly. But it's showing you this contrast between, her mother who can't really understand what her daughter is going through, and the daughter who can't really understand how her mother can just accept what's happening to her.
Right.
And so, to me, that's, like I said earlier, how my view on the movie totally switched with Washington's character, which I thought was a great character. And of course, as I was saying earlier, it's not about Louise Beaver's performance. She was great. It's just her character, the acceptance of her character was...
Yeah, exactly.
I was having the same reaction that probably Paola has in the book. It's making you angry to see her just
being so compliant.
Exactly.
So the code also imposed the removal of certain scenes, not necessarily related to the main story, but that also portrayed the discrimination against Black people. So one scene that I found as an example that was actually taken out of the movie at the requirements of the Code Association is a scene in which a young Black man is nearly lynched for approaching a white woman who he believed had invited his attention. So this is not a scene that was necessarily related to the main story of the movie, but apparently there were other scenes in the movie that had this purpose of portraying this
and the rest of society too. Like,
yes,
it's not
exactly.
Just about those two families. It's happening
right.
Everywhere.
But they were like completely removed from the movie. So I thought it was also something very interesting that like this movie really wanted to tell much more than it was allowed to.
And I gotta say, bravo to this movie for being one of the rare movies. We've watched a lot of movies with this goal. One of the rare movies that actually address the racial situation. A lot of the movies we've watched, either there is no black character. Or if there is, it's just like Louise Beavers as a maid.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just a background
Or,
character.
I mean, we've seen some caricatures of characters.
Exactly, also. One thing that actually someone in a comment pointed out, and I regret it afterward that we never touched upon, is in Aerosmith.
Yes.
There is a great portrayal of a black character, you know, as a scientist.
The scientist, and a character who is respected in his community for what he knows how to do, rather than the fact that he is a black. So that is rare.
Who's just represented as a person, you know.
Right.
And no, that was extremely rare, so we should probably have mentioned it then. But when you look at other movies we've watched, very rarely do we see black characters. And again, when they are there, it's very caricatural. It's very, like, not even secondary role. They're just in the background. They're just Louise Beavers coming in and saying, do you need another pot, mom, or something? You know, so I really applaud this movie for being so upfront about it back then. Yeah, even though you wanted to be even more upfront.
It was very brave of them to do that. And they had a great reception. Like with the public in general.
You know, a lot of the movie's message is about racial discrimination, but I think that we shouldn't just forget the fact that it's also a big movie in terms of female empowerment. You know, you get these two women who start an empire together, you know, both of them single mother.
And there too, the movie does make direct mention of the difficulties of women when they want to start a business. There is this scene I remember in which the manager points out specifically how the investors are being wary of a woman in business because of different reasons. So she should also be, you know, very assertive if she wants to achieve her goal.
Well, she has to work harder than a man would have had to get in the position that she is. And she's very smart about it. From the beginning of the movie, you see how she builds this empire. Sadly,
she's very resourceful too.
Off of the back of Beaver's character that, in my opinion, she doesn't remunerate enough for her contribution, but that's
another thing that this movie succeeds in pointing out is just how people back then were simply accepting things for what they were, because Claudette Colbert's character Beatrice also she wouldn't actively be discriminating her partner, but she was
very nice with her. But she never made any effort to be like, hey, actually...
You should get the same amount of money as me, or you should be living in like the same kind of a place as me, or...
Exactly.
You know, she just accepts things for what they are, because that's what people were doing. The movie points it out.
Yeah, but I think that, you know, it was in her power to make more effort so that Louis Beavers...
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
And so to say that like she's just accepting it, or she's just blinding herself so that she doesn't have to deal with it, because less money for you is more money for me, you know, in a way.
Yeah, that is true. I don't know, are there any other scenes that you would like to talk about, or other elements of this movie?
No, I just wanted to touch on that last element of women empowerment. And also, even though I just talked about the fact that there is inequality in the way they split their business, they're still great friends. It's still a great story of, you know, two women coming together and building this thing. But yeah, that's it on my end.
So that being said, I think this is it for our spoiler-filled discussion. Let us move on to the ranking section. So, 1934. What a year. So many titles on this list. So, the ranking, as of now, for the 1934 Best Picture Academy Awards nominees is: at number 9, Here Comes the Navy; at number 8, One Night of Love; at number 7, Flirtation Walk; at number 6, Viva Via; at number 5, Cleopatra; at number 4, The House of Rothschild; at number 3, The Barretts of Wimpole Street; at number 2, The Gay Divorcee; and at number 1, The Thin Man. With the mention that we have also discussed the movie The White Parade, but as we couldn't have watched it, it is not on the ranking list.
Yes, it's stuck at UCLA. One day.
But until then, let us discuss about this movie. Where would you put it on the ranking?
You know what, I haven't thought about it that much. It's a hard one because it's a movie that is so different from the others. It's a movie that's important. Do you put it above because of its importance? I was more entertained by other movies.
Yeah, that is also what I had in mind, is that, you know, you can't ignore the importance of this movie, but at the same time, you kind of feel like with the code imposing their rules, you kind of feel that the movie
They couldn't go all
lacked
the way.
something a little bit, yeah. So it's difficult to really rank it.
Yeah, I don't know, 2 or 3. I don't know. What do you think?
I was gonna say number 3. Actually, that was my idea. So above the Barretts of Wimpole Street, because I feel like just the first 2 movies on this list were just very good movies in terms of performances, entertainment, story-wise, everything. Like they came together really well. This movie it obviously tells a much more intricate story. I really appreciated it for how subtle managed to transmit its message, but I do feel like it's lacking something like a little bit.
Yeah, but in my opinion, you see, because it is lacking that one element, that punch, that crunch that needed to be there, but that was taken away by the code. That's why it's not number 1. I would put it at number 2. Because these scenes that we've talked about, the subtlety, like how they managed to tell a whole story without saying a word, and this one image, you understand so much from this, like it's masterclass in movie
Yeah,
making,
that is true. I didn't even think about that they did manage to keep their message without
they were
while
blocked,
respecting
but
the rules.
Exactly.
So you want to put it at number 2?
I would say number 2.
I could accept that, definitely. Yeah, I think it deserves it. I think the subtlety and the way they managed to go around the subject without specifically saying it, but still very well portraying it. I feel like even production-wise, this movie is ahead of its time in this, when it comes to these elements.
And again, like to me, the only reason it's not number 1, it's like it was missing that crunch, that Washington's character, as she was in the book, probably being more radicalized. And in comparison, watching The Tin Man, I didn't feel like anything was missing. I felt like the movie was complete.
Okay, so then that is it. So the ranking of the 1934 Academy Awards Best Picture nominees as of now and according to our personal preferences is at number 10, Here Comes the Navy, at number 9, One Night of Love, at number 8, Flirtation Walk, at number 7, Viva Via, at number 6, Cleopatra, at number 5, The House of Rothschild, at number 4, The Barretts of Wimpole Street, at number 3, The Gay Divorcee, at number 2, Imitation of Life, and at number 1, The Thin Man.
Okay, 1 movie left.
That is it. 1 more movie, and this year will be complete. It's incredible how many movies
Actually,
there are
not going to
here.
be complete because we haven't seen White Parade.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously. We have seen every other movie that we could, so yeah, it's incredible how many movies there are this year. But, well, it is what it is. Luckily for us, I feel like a lot of these movies were good. Like, it's the balance is starting to shift towards. I'd say that at this point, everything that is above number 7 is good.
Yeah.
So that's already more than half.
It's more than half of them. Yeah, that's true.
So that was it for our review of the 1934 movie Imitation of Life. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to watch more videos of ours, you can subscribe to our channel, which, don't forget, is not just about watching and reviewing movies. It is a bucket list channel in which we try to accomplish the goals and dreams that are on our bucket list, and they are as varied as things that you can do under the sun. We do things like traveling, self-growth, learning new things, entertainment-related videos. So if you don't want to miss them, don't forget to subscribe. Also, ring the bell to be notified when our next video drops. Once again, thank you so much for watching and have a nice day.
Bye.
How much for cash?
Oh, that is cash.
Oh, I put my trust in Jesus.